I did everything I could for my brother. Even my sister, she tried everything she could to keep our brother on the right path, but it just seemed every single thing we tried to do, there was our brother messing it up. So when it came to the family business, you would think that's the one thing he would not mess up, but oh boy, disappointment once again. My name's Jack, and I've always been the responsible one in the family. My parents raised me to be hardworking and dedicated, and I took those values to heart. I got my first job at my father's firm when I was very young, and I learned everything I could about how to run a business there. I was adamant that I would make my parents happy and grow the company to new heights. Being the oldest child in my family, I've always felt a responsibility to take care of everybody. I learned early on the value of perseverance and hard efforts, and I internalized those principles. I was the one who assisted my father in the family business, absorbing all I could about how to manage a flourishing firm. I was determined to make my parents proud and take the business to new heights. On the other hand, Lily, my younger sister, has always been more carefree. Our parents catered to her every wish because she was the youngest member of the family. She was a devoted sister who always had my support despite having little interest in the family business. Derek, my younger brother, was a disappointment to our family and had been for so long as I can remember. He was 27 years of age and continued to rely on our father's financial support, never once getting a job or learning to care for himself. He frequently got into financial difficulties by taking out loans from loan sharks and other money lenders. Despite our parents' best efforts, he always disappointed them and wasted their kindness. He dropped out of college after just a few semesters and he never looked back. He was always looking for the easy way out, and he was never willing to put them in hard work, the hard work that was required to achieve his dreams. He would borrow money from our parents or me or Lily, promising that he was going to turn his life around, but he never did. He was always looking for someone else to bail him out of all his messes. He was always coming to us begging us for money to pay his debt. He would cry and plead, promising that he was going to change, but he never did. He'd always go back to those old ways, gambling, spending money on frivolous stuff. We were all tired of all his lies and his excuses, and we were done with his irresponsible behavior. Our parents had finally had enough a few years back. They refused to give him any more money, and they told him that it was time for him to start taking responsibility for his own life. He was absolutely furious with them, and he swore that he was going to make it on his own, but he quickly realized that he was in over his head. He had no job, he had no skills, and no way to make a true living. He turned to loan sharks and other money lenders, and he racked up massive debt. My father, Walter, was a successful businessman, honestly, and he always made sure that his children were taken care of well. He divided his business into equal shares for my brother, sister, and me, leaving us each with an inheritance that we could be proud of, but little did we know my brother had other plans. I saw 35 years old when my parents first confessed to me about their illness. Both of them have contracted terminal diseases in the last few years, and had chosen to conceal them from my siblings and me, for our own benefit. They told me that they would likely pass away soon, and I needed to make sure that we'll be okay in their absence. They told me that they loved me and knew that they had nothing to worry about concerning me or Lily. Derek, however, they said that was another matter. They told me that due to their irresponsible behavior Derek had demonstrated, his stocks would remain locked up until both Lily and I decided he could responsibly deal with them. They also told me to keep this secret from Derek until their passing. Soon after, they informed the entire family, and Lily flew down at once. Desperate to spend what little time my parents had left on this earth taking care of them. A few days later, after not responding to the 30 voice messages that I left him, Derek showed up out of the blue. He didn't seem particularly concerned about the news of our parents, with their illness and all, and the first opportunity he had, he took me aside and asked me if he could borrow some money. I, of course, was baffled, asked him whether he was there to ask for money or to inquire about our parents' health. He scoffed and answered that of course he was there for our parents, but he needed some money and he didn't want to ask them for it in the States. I told him that we could talk about the money some other time. He grew frustrated and began asking me about the will and whether I've seen it. Flabbergasted, I asked him why he would want to know such a thing, and he replied, quote, "They're certainly not going to live forever, bro. After all, I'm just looking out for my own benefit." I grew cross with him and told him to figure out his priorities instead of chasing money all the time. The next day, Lily informed me that he had asked her for money too and had kept insisting on it after she refused. To shut him up, she finally relented and gave him the money from her last art exhibition. The next few months were extremely tiring. We lost both of our parents within a week of each other. My parents' passing was very traumatic, and it took me a long time to accept it. In addition to a tremendous sense of obligation to preserve their legacy and honor their memory, I experienced intense sadness and loss. I immersed myself in my work, determined to make the company successful and provide for my siblings. In their last days, they have told me that it was up to me to take care of my younger siblings, and we're all mired in grief. We all had a hard time accepting the loss. I had to balance the business as well as take care of the members of my remaining family. Even though it was a trying and stressful endeavor, I tried my best to be there for my family and do whatever I could to help them. After our parents' death, the family business was divided amongst Lily, Derek, and me. Our parents, they did leave behind a will, but before the reading, the lawyer revealed to Derek what my parents had already told me, that his share of stocks would not pass to him, not directly at least, upon their death. Upon hearing this, he became angry and started shouting, saying that Lily and I were trying to take his rightful share of the inheritance away from him. With a heavy heart, I informed him that he needs to turn his life around and make something of himself before we released his inheritance. Well, that was my parents' final wish, and I was going to honor it to the end. He stormed out, proclaiming that he would regret doing this to him. Lily, after our parents' death, wanted to stay near me in our family home. She soon decided to stay in town and continue to pursue her passion. However, she did not want to play any active part in running the company, and she asked me to manage her stocks as I saw fit. Derek, who had disappeared after the funeral to God knows where, finally showed up a few months later, and when he came back, he was crying and claiming that he was a changed man. He told us that he was sorry for all the trouble that he caused and that he wanted to make things right. He promised that he was going to turn his life around and be the responsible brother that he'd always wanted him to be. Whatever his faults, he was still my younger brother, and I wanted to believe the best of him. I accepted him back into the fold, and I believed that he was sincere in his apologies. I was willing to give him a chance to prove himself, and I even got him a job at the family business, thinking that it would be a good opportunity for him to get back on his feet. At first, everything seemed to be going swell. Derek was working hard and doing his best to make a good impression. He seemed to be genuinely trying to turn his life around, and I was proud of him for that. But as time went on, I started to notice something strange. My brother was acting shady, always trying to find out secrets and asking a lot of questions about new projects and all their funding. He seemed to be very interested, and I mean very, about the inner workings of the business, and he always tried to get involved in things that had no business of him being involved in. I tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe I was just being paranoid, but Lily was also starting to notice something off about his, behavior. She felt that he was up to something, and she warned me to be careful. But I was still so sure that Derek had changed, and I didn't want to believe that he was capable of deceit. The first cause of the alarm was when she saw him talking to rough-looking men outside her home and arguing with them. She initially brushed it off, but soon noticed that it was a regular occurrence. Those men would be waiting outside her home often, standing outside the streets at all hours of the day. Each time they were persuaded by our younger brother to leave, long after arguments. She confronted our younger brother about the men, but he denied any such thing and told her she's just being silly. Lily, well, She was absolutely not convinced, and she was determined to get to the bottom of the situation. She continued to keep an eye for her younger brother and noticed that these men continued to visit. She finally decides to speak to me about the situation. She told me everything that she's been expressed and all his concerns about our younger brother's behavior. I was shocked and concerned, and I knew that I needed to investigate further. It wasn't until one of our employees came to me with concerns about Derek's behavior that I finally started to realize the truth. The employee noticed that Derek was always asking questions about sensitive projects and business matters. He seemed concerned that Derek might try to embezzle company money. I was shocked, and honestly, I was extremely hurt by the news. But I knew that I had to face the truth. My brother, he had not changed at all, and he was still the selfish, irresponsible person that he always was. He was using his newfound job as a way to gather information and find a way to cheat us, all out of our inheritance. I was resolved to discover the truth about my younger brother's strange actions. After everything our parents had worked for, I could not believe he would risk our family's business. To find out what he was doing, I made the decision to engage in private investigator. Yeah, a PI. Derek had been working with a known crime boss in the city, and he owed them a huge sum of money. The investigator learned, and the private eye listened in on the conversation between Derek and the legendary crime leader, while he followed my younger brother. I received the investigator's report, and what I heard absolutely terrified me. The investigator said that he overheard Derek begging for more time to pay the debt. He was heard saying, "Please, I just need a little more time. I promise I'll pay you back. The business is doing well, and I just needed to get my hands on the money." That's when the boss replied, "Time's running out, kid. You've been saying that for months now. We're tired of waiting." Derek pleaded with the mob boss and saying, "I'll do anything, just give a little more time. I won't let you down." The investigator also reported that the boss was not happy and was threatening Derek. "You better come up with that money, kiddo, or soon there's going to be sharp consequences. We don't tolerate deadbeats, and we won't hesitate to make an example of you. But you already know this." What I heard about that astonished and horrified me. I did not understand how Derek managed to get himself into such a mess every time. I was resolved to take any necessary measures to safeguard my family and the company. I was aware that I had to think quickly and formulate a strategy to rescue Derek from this predicament. After talking everything over with Lily, we decided to help our brother. The amount needed was astronomical, but Lily assured me that she'd saved up money from her previous art exhibitions, and between the two of us, we could help him repay his debt. However, when we tried to contact our brother, his mobile phone was switched off. We kept trying to call him, but to no avail. Half an hour later, we get a call from our manager of operations. He was in great distress and told us that our brother had stolen the money that we loaned from the bank and reserved it for an upcoming project worth $200 million. He wired the money to an offshore account and disappeared. And what's more, he had used my name to do it. The bank had already called the manager and accused me of stealing the money. Lily and I were shocked at what he's done, and after a while, she said that maybe he had used the money to pay off his debt. Just then, there was a knock at the door. A couple men were standing outside. Upon seeing them, Lily said that they were the men who she'd seen hanging out outside the home. They asked us about the location of our younger brother. When we told them, we didn't know where he was. They said that their informants have told them that our brother had left the country half an hour ago and had disappeared to God knows where. The men start harassing us, saying that in his absence, we could have to pay the debt. They threatened to kill us, hurt us, if we didn't pay up. We managed to placate them by saying we would find out where our brother went and make sure he paid them back with interest. I knew then I needed to contact the police, and I did so just that. And once I told them about my younger brother's theft and provided them with all the evidence I've collected, after a month of investigating, the police were finally able to track down Derek. I was relieved that justice would be served, but I also knew that the loan sharks would still be after us. I decided to make a deal with them. I would give them the sum of the business of $10 million, the amount my brother owed them, and in return, they would forget about Derek and our family. Well, they agreed and said that upon payment they would never show up and harass us again. I felt a sense of relief knowing that my family would be safe, but at the same time, I was filled with guilt for betraying Derek and getting him arrested by the police. A few days later, the police called me. They stated that he's been detained and was being returned to the nation that stand trial at. He was given the lengthy prison term in front of me in court. As he was being hauled away, he stared at me, shouting that it was all my fault and that if I had just given him his rightful share, none of this would have happened. He was silenced and taken away by the police. In the end, I was able to reclaim the stolen money. He had not used up much of the $200 million that he's stolen, and I was able to put it back into the family business. The loan sharks were satisfied with the outcome and kept their end of the bargain by leaving us alone. Despite not being able to fulfill my parents' last request of taking care of my brother, I guess you can say I was happy and proud that I've done what I needed to do to be done to protect Lily and me. So we had betrayal, we had loan sharks, we had huge debt, we had a little bit of revenge, and we had some jail time. Guys, this story was absolutely nuts. There was a lot of comments on this one saying, I do not believe this story could possibly be real. First of all, the debt was just ridiculous. $10 million? What the heck did he do? Rob a museum? Anyways, there was also some comments and they were saying, no, there's been way crazier stories before I've seen personally on the news. This is definitely not too far-fetched. And there was people arguing left and right in the comment section saying, no, this is this specific case. No, it's actually this specific case that was in this state. Let me just hear from you guys. What do you think of this story? Was it real or was it fugazi? Let me know your thoughts. Drop it in the comment section down below, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. My name's Mr. Reddito. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you want to see more stories, because I post every single day. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day. Peace.